Biddle-doo-doo-doom. 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 Biddle-doo. Hey guys, it's DT back with another big statue unboxing. So not too long ago, I reviewed the XM Studios X-Men vs. Sentinel Diorama, the biggest, most expensive statue in my collection. That thing was over 200 pounds, required me to make a custom turntable, and required me to have a standalone display in the middle of my office. And today we're gonna be taking a look at another X-Men vs. Sentinel diorama, this one from the folks over at Iron Studios. So this is 1/10 scale, unlike the XM Studios that was 1/6 scale. However, this is only one of 3 Sentinels that you can put together to make a massive diorama. So today I'm gonna open up these 2 big boxes, we'll put this guy together, and then I'll give you guys my thoughts on how this thing stacks up against the XM Studios Sentinel. Okay guys, so here we have the smaller of the 2 boxes. This one says part 1 of 2, so I thought we'd start here. I'm not sure if the base is in here, it's definitely the lighter of the 2 boxes, but I'm excited to open this up, so let's have a look. Okay, so right off the bat, when we open this up, here's something in the plastic. X-Men vs. Sentinel #1 instruction manual. So I guess you want to start with the smaller box because this is where the instructions are, sort of like a Lego set. We got the black straps, but we also have some tape here. Let's see what we get inside. Let's see what we get. All right, so there are a lot of pieces here. Let's start unwrapping this stuff. Uh-oh. Something. Houston, we have a problem. All right, so unfortunately, right off the bat, as I'm unwrapping this, we've got a break. Whatever this piece is, I'm guessing this is part of the base. I see part of a door right here, door knocker. It's got some battle damage with some extra battle damage down here. That's a little unfortunate that that's the first piece I open up. All right, so this looks like the big Sentinel leg. So here it is. This is the Sentinel leg and pelvis area. Here's a close look at that. Got some little rust and dirt. Here's a look at the foot. Again, with some dirt on the bottom. Nice effect there. All these little rivets. And if you guys saw my unboxing of the XM Studios Sentinel, you'll notice that there are quite a few differences. That one was definitely a lot more detailed, much bigger statue. But I think this one's a little bit more comic book accurate, but we'll go over some of the differences, what I think about them in the review portion, so make sure to stick around for that. I can actually hold it in one hand, whereas that other Sentinel was a lot heavier. All right, here's a look at the other leg, very similar. The foot I did notice here is actually rather narrow. Got a really big heel, but this portion of the foot is narrow. Here's a nice little shoulder pad. So here we have the Iron Studios shoulder, and here we have the XM Studios shoulder. So you can see just the amount of extra detail in that XM piece. Of course, it is different scale, and the price tag is a bit heftier, but just to give you an idea of the differences. The Iron Studios one does fit a little better with how they look in the comic books. They're not super detailed. So here we have a big piece of candy. No, this is not a Jolly Rancher stick. This is the Optic Blast of Cyclops. It's got this nice translucent resin. Looks pretty cool. It is all one color. It does remind me a lot of those Jolly Rancher candies, the ones where you have to kind of peel the paper back, and then as you're eating it, it gets really sharp and it cuts your tongue. Sort of like these jagged parts right here. Looks like we have some more wood pieces. This would be the floor of Xavier's School for Gifted Children. We've got some wood planks, some little splinter debris. It kind of loses some detail in some of those areas. So the wood on this beam doesn't look as good as the wood on this one. Maybe we can't even see this part once it's installed, so I'll save my judgment for later. Oh, we have Jubilee. Man, these things are so tiny. So her little powers are kind of flopping here. A lot of great detail in these, but they are tiny. She does look quite a bit more Asian in this one than she does in that XM piece. Now Jubilee does appear with blue eyes in some comic books. This one, her eyes appear a bit darker. pose is really cool. She's got her pink tank top with the X-Men logo, also X-Men logo on the belt. Some nice jean shorts, some really cool detailed boots. She's got one peg in her right foot, and of course she's got her signature yellow jacket. Some nice detail in that as well. I think her face could use a little bit more contouring. It looks a little bit flat and plasticky, but you know, this is 1/10 scale, so you're gonna miss out on some of those details that you get with larger scale statues. So here's the other shoulder. This one's got some wires coming out of it, so it's not all just flat and plain. We have the metal kind of getting peeled up here. These are not real wires, you can't bend them. I know a lot of XM Studios pieces that have wires are actual copper wires, but these are not, so don't try to bend them. Here we have a light post. It's kind of cool. It's got these transparent pieces to represent the glass. I don't believe this lights up, but it does have this nice effect when the light hits it. Kind of got this scroll design in the ironwork. Here we have some more furniture, it looks like. Table, pedestal, something. Got some nice gold accents in there. Another similar piece right here. This one has a small peg and key. Here we have a portrait of the original X-Men. Nice ornamental frame. It's got this magnetic key on the back. Here we have Wolverine, or part of Wolverine anyway. He's missing his claws and his head. There's some nice texture there in his suit. Pretty clean lines on those stripes. Details on his belt and his little underwear. Nice musculature in the quads. Cool details in the boots. He's even got some dirt on his rear end. Here we have some sculpted in hair on his arms. Let's see if we can dig up his head. See a head here. Is it his? This is Cyclops' head. So his blast just keys into his visor there. Okay, then we have Rogue's portrait. Her eyes are looking a little weird there. Guess it depends on the angle you look at them, but I would imagine that trying to paint these 1/10 scale human eyes would probably be pretty difficult. She's got the nice big hair, and the hair actually looks really nice. Got some depth in there. I think my least favorite thing about these 1/10 scale humans is the skin. The skin comes off looking a little flat. All right, then over here we have Beast. Uh-oh, we got another broken part. He's pulling out the wires, one of which is broken, but really cool sculpt on Beast. Some great detail in all the hair. He too has the dirty feet. The main difference, other than the scale of course, from the XM Studios Beast is that his head is pretty small compared to his body, whereas the XM Studios Beast, his head was pretty massive. He is holding this part of the Sentinel that he's ripped out. So he pegs in on his left hand, and his body is actually suspended in midair. I think there's another portrait in here. Looks like Wolverine's. This thing is tiny. Got a screaming portrait, just like other Wolverines in my collection, just a lot smaller. This goes on like that. Pretty fierce looking Wolverine. Here is one of his claw options. This is his right hand, and as you can see, it comes with this kind of motion swipe, I guess. From the pictures I've seen, it looks better without it, but I guess I'll give it a try. Kind of a cartoony looking thing. Here we have Cyclops. He is a really deep shade of blue, really makes that yellow on him pop. I'm not too sure how I feel about the pose right now. Kind of a goofy looking pose, but a lot of Cyclops statues I've seen kind of look a little goofy like that. Guess it's just the character. So here we have Rogue's body. It's kind of similar to that Sideshow maquette. We got the flying Rogue pose with her leg up. She's got her right arm punching the Sentinel. Not sure how I feel about that bent wrist there. Looks a little weak to me, but she's got the nice leather bomber jacket on. Then we got some more debris pieces. Here we have a little trash can, it looks like, with some garbage inside. Here's another Wolverine claw. So here's the alternate hand without the swoosh. And to me, that looks 1,000 times better. To give you guys a little sense of scale, here is the 1/10 Beast, and here is the 1/6 Beast from XM Studios. The size difference is quite noticeable. If characters are your thing, the Iron Studios might be the way to go. But if scale is your thing, definitely the XM. Okay, and here we have box number 2, part 2 of 2. Let's see what we have. First piece, we have an arm. The hands are almost human-like, the way they're jointed. A little bit on the skinny side for my taste, but we've got the yellow light in the middle. It doesn't actually light up. Got some hydraulic wrist joints. This one's got a fist, nice forearm. Here is our upper Sentinel torso. I guess the head comes attached on this guy. Poor guy got his face ripped off, but nice weathering on the head. And then we've got all these wires and guts coming out because Wolverine has just made a hole in our friend here. But a nice smooth metallic finish. Kind of got this spine going down the back. Some claw marks. Key and peg down there at the bottom. Thing's got some good weight to it. More broken wooden column. Looks like our base comes in 2 different parts. So here's one part right here. We've got a lot of wood flooring. To me, it looks a little bit cartoonish, the paint job on this. It doesn't look that realistic. I think the color contrast is just a little bit like animated series, which I think is what they were going for with this piece. I do like all the little splinters and fragments. I think that's a nice touch as well. Then we've got all these broken floor pieces, and these are actually flexible. It's got some good weight, especially since this is only half of it. Then underneath, we've got some rock. A little muddy looking on that rock. Looks like there's some wires or something going on here. Looks kind of like licorice. Got these 2 pegs here on the sides where it kind of connects to the other portion of the base. And then on top, we've got this big footprint where the Sentinel foot's gonna go. And here is the other side. So this one's got a little bit more rock than wood. I guess it's the exterior of the mansion. Got these rocks kind of painted different colors, steps leading up to the door. This brick here on the sides, pink and orangey color. Here's another broken statue. This one's of a lion. Another big footprint there. So let's go ahead and get this on the table and we'll put this whole thing together. All right guys, here is the monster. Let me do a quick overview, give you a few of my thoughts on this piece. So this is a very large statue, especially for being 1/10 scale. It comes in at about 35.4 inches tall, over 32 inches wide from the tip of Cyclops' hand over to Jubilee over there. So it is gonna take up a considerable amount of shelf space. One of the things I did like is that the depth is under 17 inches. I think it's about 16.5 inches. And that's always the dimension that gets me in a lot of trouble. A lot of times these big statues come with these very deep bases, which makes it very hard to find a shelf to put it on. But this being under 17 inches makes it very display friendly. And I think if anything, the width is gonna be the one that gets you on this one, especially if you're gonna add the other Sentinels. But the cool thing is you can arrange the Sentinels pretty much any way you want. So you can have one Sentinel on one side of the room, another Sentinel on another side of the room, whereas the XM Studio Sentinel was a massive chunk of a piece that you have to pretty much put in the middle of your room. So starting off with the base, we've got one side being the crushed up mansion and the other side being the destroyed entryway. There's some good detail in some of the rocks, the broken wood, the broken statues, but as I mentioned earlier, I think the detailing and the paint could have been better. The floor and this piece in general just come off a little bit animated style. It just looks a little bit cartoony, which may be what they were going for when they designed this. But I love how the Sentinel's kind of stomping on these things. You can almost feel the ground shaking as you're looking at this thing. I love that you can actually see what's beneath the floor. We've got kind of the concrete foundation, and then below that we can kind of see the X-Men logo. and it appears to be another room down there, maybe the danger room. We've got this cool lamppost back here as a nice touch, garbage can, just a lot of little cool details that you might miss the first time you look at it. So this piece is very dynamic. There's a lot going on here. All the X-Men have these action poses where they're showing off their powers and abilities. We've got Cyclops here with this really cool optic blast going into the Sentinel's thigh. I think his pose is a little bit awkward and goofy, but that's something we've come to expect with Cyclops statues for some reason. We've got Jubilee kind of doing a wall walk on this broken piece of flooring. The nice flowing jacket and her power arc give this a nice sense of motion. And then probably my favorite one is Wolverine here coming through the Sentinel's stomach. We've got all these wires coming out. I think this could have been done better if they used actual wires. It would have looked a lot cooler, but I do like how you can see the longer ones on the outside, and then if you look inside, you can actually see some more shorter ones in there as well. Then we've got Rogue up here flying in the front. She's just dealt the Sentinel a big right hook that has put a big dent in his face, knocked his eye a little silly, and again, I think they did a pretty good job with her, except for maybe the paint on her face. And then we've got Beast up there on the right shoulder, tearing out all the cables and wires, and I love how he's suspended just with his left hand. The Sentinel itself looks awesome. Great job with the weathering and dirt effects with the paint application. Some really nice details on the sculpt with all these little rivets, hydraulics, and mechanical parts. His fingers are a little bit on the skinny side. I do think that this piece could have benefited from a light up feature or two, but for some reason they decided not to do that, which is not a deal breaker for me. But if you're gonna light up a statue, I think a Sentinel would be the ideal candidate. So the assembly of this guy wasn't too difficult. I think the engineering of how the base pieces connect could have been a little bit better. There is a bit of movement in there, and moving this thing is gonna require you to pretty much take the whole thing apart. But it's not like you're gonna be carrying this guy all over the place. Well, at least I hope not. Once situated, it is a pretty solid base. All right, so my thoughts on this versus the XM piece. Well, aside from them both being called the X-Men versus Sentinel Diorama, that's pretty much all they have in common. We've got a Sentinel and we've got some X-Men. We've got two completely different scales. Here we have the smaller 1/10 scale, and then the XM is a larger 1/6 scale. If you just want a cool Sentinel in your collection and price is a big factor, it's pretty much a no-brainer. You're gonna go with this guy right here. This one retailed for around $1,700 plus another couple $100 for shipping, couple $100 for taxes. So you're looking at around $2,000 for this one piece. Whereas the XM Studio Sentinel is gonna run you $5,000 to $6,000 all in. So if you're comparing just this one to that one and you're on a budget, I think your best bet is to go with this guy. Now, where things get a little bit tricky is if you add the second and third Sentinel. The prices are gonna be a little bit more comparable, with Sentinel number 2 costing around $1,300 and Sentinel number 3 another $17. So I think two major factors will help you with your decision. The first one is the selection of characters. I think if you're someone that wants the entire A-list of X-Men characters and you can't do without them, I think there's no other choice than the Iron Studios. The XM Studios piece lacks a few of the major players like Wolverine and Cyclops, but it does have Colossus, Beast, Psylocke, Bishop, Archangel, and Jubilee as well. But that might not be enough if you want everybody. The other major factor is scale. The XM Studios is a 1/6 scale piece, so it is a lot bigger. The Sentinel is bigger, the characters around it are bigger, and for me, I want something that's impressive from across the room. Now, I'm not saying that this isn't, but I think the XM Studios piece has a bit more wow factor. The Sentinel itself is massive, intricately detailed, and the paint really shines. And for the Iron Studios piece, as detailed as they are, the 1/10 scale humans here just don't cut it for me. I think they work very well on the Sentinels, but as standalone pieces, they kind of get lost in the shuffle. I've had the Professor X and the Mystique pieces for a while now, and they kind of just sit on my shelf and no one really pays attention to them. But that's just my opinion. If you're into action figures and smaller scale statues, this might be the ideal size for your collection. So if I had to choose between the XM Studios Sentinel versus all three of the Iron Studios Sentinels, which one would I pick? I think I would have to go with the XM Studios. I already have a bunch of quarter scale X-Men. My main focus was finding the most impressive Sentinel. And while this one is very true to some of the comic books and animated series, I just think the XM Studios piece with its scale and details is on another level. And I was able to overlook that it didn't have some of the other characters. And as you know, I just display it with other 1/6 scale X-Men from other companies. Okay, so those are my thoughts on the Iron Studios Sentinel #1. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Make sure to subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.